to the International Macro.lab. My name is Davide, and together with me we have Margot from both of us from BF, second year. Oh, I think there was some sort of audio. Margot, if you want, you can introduce yourself as well.
Oh, yeah, sure. So hello guys, I'm Margot, second year BF. And yes, today we're here for the Macro Lab. Hopefully we'll be able to help you. But yes, maybe you guys will teach us more macro than we will. God knows. No, but it's gonna be fun. Well, I think I just lost my roommates right now. She's dying. But yes, so whenever you guys need, ask us questions in the group chat. I mean in the chat. Also feel free to unmute yourself. Maybe for now, like when we're doing the exercise, mute yourself so that there's not like background noises. But then if you have a question, feel free. We're here for that. We're not gonna eat you. And yes, that's pretty much it. So the recording is going on. It's gonna be posted on YouTube. So in case your friends cannot make it tonight, you can tell them that there's a recording on YouTube if they want to watch it. Or if you guys want to see our beautiful faces, I don't know, you do you. And yeah, I'm gonna start sharing the screen.
YouTube
right now, it's amazing.
Yeah, Nicole, it's on YouTube on the P-Lab channel, I think. Although Margot can maybe quote me on this.
Exactly, it's gonna be on YouTube on B-Lab's channel.
Okay, cool. So you want to start first, Margot?
Sure. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so there you go, our little cover page, Macro.lab, first partial, March 2021. Beautiful. So let's start with easy things, GDP. So I'm not going to show the solutions yet, it will be too easy. So you consider a country with two firms, and they're characterized as follow. Firm A has the following costs. So 20 of wages, 20 of taxes, and 10 of purchases of intermediate goods from abroad. And in terms of revenues, so there's 30 of sales of intermediate goods to B and 60 of sales of final goods to abroad. Firm B, it's pretty much the same structure. So there's 50 of wages, 10 of taxes, and 30 of purchases of intermediate goods from A. And in terms of revenues, they have 80 of sales of final goods to the public and 30 of sales of intermediate goods to foreign firms. So first question, compute the GDP of the country using the three definitions. So first of all, let's make you guys work a little bit. Can you tell me in the chat if you guys remember the three definitions of the GDP? Do you guys remember what those three definitions are? I want to hear a hell yeah. I want to see the chat on fire. Final value of products. Yes.
Okay.
Some of value added.
Black clothes. I'm doing the washing machine. Yes, it's no. Okay.
There's someone taking now. Okay. So yes, you guys are right. Some of value added, some of incomes, and final goods. So let's do this right now. So for A, yeah, unfortunately, guys, I do not have many devices and stuff with me. So I'm just gonna show you guys the solutions right now. Like I don't have an iPad and stuff to write on, but we'll do our best. So with the first definition, if you use a definition such as the following, so the GDP is the value of the final goods and services produced in the economy in a given period. In that case, what would it be? It would be for firm A, 60 minus 10. So the 60 of sales of final goods to abroad. You do not count the sales of intermediate goods, minus the 10 of purchases of intermediate goods from abroad. And for firm B, it's going to be those 80 plus 30 here. 80 of sales of final goods to the public and 30 of sales of intermediate goods to foreign firms. That adds up to 160. Okay, great. Now we got to find the same number, obviously, with the two other definitions. Otherwise, it means that there's something that we did wrong. So with the second definition, the GDP is the sum of the value added in the economy in a given period. In that case, what would you do? From firm A, what is their value added? Their value added is going to be the 60 here plus 30 here minus the 10 of their purchases from abroad. And then you add the value added of also firm B. That is 80 plus 30 minus 30. So 80 plus 30 of sales minus the 30 of purchases. Great. And then finally, the last definition, GDP is the sum of incomes in the economy in a given period. Okay, so this one is a bit more tricky. How do you do the sum of incomes? You have different incomes to take into consideration. First of all, the easiest one, the income from the firms, right? So as far as firm A is concerned, it's simply going to be 60 plus 30 minus 10 minus 20 minus 20. So other revenues minus other costs. Then, so this is the income of firm A. Then you're going to add the income of firm B. So 80 plus 30 of revenues there, and then other costs, minus 10, minus 30, and minus 15. Okay, so here you have the two revenues of the incomes, quote unquote, of the two firms. Then on top of that, you gotta add the incomes earned by the workers. So basically the wages. So 15 plus 20. And then there's one last income that you shouldn't forget, which is the income from the government, right? So it's gonna be the taxes, plus 20, plus 10. So make sure that you add really all the incomes in the economy. So not only the income from the firm, from the CEO of the firm, if you prefer to see it that way, but also the income from the workers, so their wages, and also the income of the government through the taxes. Okay, great. So for that first question, is everything clear? I'm going a bit fast because, I mean, then there's some more important things on which we'll spend a bit more time. But if you guys have questions, yes, clear, amazing. So then question B, what are they asking us? It's here. Okay, suppose now that the government implements a protectionist policy that modifies the economic situation of both firms. Firm A now purchases intermediate goods from B for 50 instead of purchasing intermediate goods from abroad for 10. And now sells final goods to the public for 60 instead of sending them abroad. And moreover, for firm B, well, now they sell intermediate goods to A for 50 instead of sending the intermediate goods abroad for 30. Because of course the change that was for firm A is reciprocal. And now they ask you to compute the GDP again with the same three definitions. So let's go. First of all, I think the first thing that you have to do is, just do those little tables again so that everything is clear, all the changes that occurred. So the changes that occurred are the following. So here, the 60 here, and now this 30. Those are the things that changed. And now you just compute everything again. So if you use the first definition, the GDP is the value of the final goods and services produced in the economy in a given period. In that case, now the GDP is simply this 60 of sales of final goods to the public and this 80 of sales of final goods to the public. So you're not going to count the sales of intermediate goods, right? So you're not going to count this 30 and you're not going to count this 50 of sales of intermediate goods to A. Great. So 60 plus 80, 140. So you know that 140 is also what you will need to find for the following definitions. Definition 2, the GDP is the sum of the value added in the economy in a given period. So here again, the value added by firm A, what is it? It's 60 plus 30 minus 50. So it's going to be this 60 plus this 30 and minus this 50 of purchases of intermediate goods from B. And then from firm B, what is the added value? It is 80 plus 50 minus 30. So 80 plus 50 of sales, 80 plus 50 here, and minus 30 of purchases of intermediate goods from A. There you go. And then last but not least, the third definition as sum of incomes in the economy, negative period. So again, be sure that you take into consideration all the income. So income from firm A, it's going to be 60 plus 30, so other revenues, minus other costs. So minus 20 of wage, minus 20 of taxes, and minus 50 of purchases. Then what is going to be the income from firm B, sorry, it's going to be other revenues, 50 plus 80, minus other costs, minus 15 of wage, minus 10 of taxes, and minus 30 in purchases. Then on top of that, you add also the income from the workers, so the wages, plus 15 and plus 20. And then you add the income from the government, so the taxes, plus 10 and plus 20. So you end up with still 140, which is good. Could the others mute themselves? Yes, indeed. Thank you, guys. It would be nice. But again, if you have a question, write it in the chat, and also unmute yourself if you have a question. But maybe like if you don't have any questions, yeah, maybe better if you guys are muted. Thank you. So yes, for this exercise, that's pretty much it, and that's pretty much all you need to know in terms of GDP. Know how to apply those three definitions, know what to include and what not to include in each of those definitions. That is pretty much it. Is everything clear? Do you guys have any questions on this exercise? All clear? Amazing. Thank you. Okay, so for the second exercise, I yield the floor to Davide. Davide, you alive?
My bad, I was on mute. I was saying, I think you have to stop sharing your screen, but it should be working. Right, so can you guys see my screen again here? I think you're able to. Can you guys hear me? Yes?
The thing is, like, if I try to stop sharing my screen, it says this will stop other screen sharing. So
but like, can you guys see my screen? And
I mean, I can
like,
see yours. Yes. Can you?
Okay, then it doesn't matter. Okay.
Awesome.
So yeah, throughout now we'll just do the goods markets and one exercise. I rather a true/false question for what concerns goods market and savings. It's very straightforward once again, and we'll move on to harder questions. So I'll speed through this kind of quickly, but not as much. And obviously, whenever you have any questions, just ask them. I prefer that if you unmute because I'm not able to see the chat. But like in case there's some that slips off, Margot will actually be able to read it, or I will be able to catch up. So no problem with that. So moving on to this one. So it's a true or false, as I was saying, and we'll just read the question pretty quickly. And it asks us to explain whether the following statement is true or false. Obviously, motivate your answer in a brief but rigorous way by making explicit reference to the relevant theories. So as usual, we have to be pretty thorough in our explanations. So we're considering a closed economy where I is actually exogenous together with G and T. So whenever they tell you that a variable is exogenous, it means that it's fixed. So you take it basically as given, and that's actually very cool in terms of stuff to calculate, to compute, and stuff related to that, because it makes everything easier. And obviously, they also give us the private saving formula, the private saving formula, which is very cool, considering that you know, they already tell you how it's done, and like you don't have to figure it out by yourself. And by now, what we have to do at the moment is basically find how what's the relationship actually between investment, public saving, and private saving. And obviously, to get to this, well, you wouldn't say is that hard. However, what I would actually allow you guys to understand, what I will try to let you guys understand is how to get there. So, well, starting off, we can first understand that income is basically the sum of consumption, investment, and government spending, and this is, you know, the basics. So this is just basically, I think, the proof that very quick proof that your professors have already done in class, which is basically subtracting t at both sides. And from here, you can already understand that we are having y minus d minus c if we move c over to that side. And while on the other hand, we have plus t minus g. So we're just a little bit of rearranging. So I hope you guys are following pretty quickly. And so here what we're having is basically three type of things, which is basically investment, and this is public saving, sorry, and this is private saving. So which is basically the thing that we found out before. So from here you can understand that if you take this one as given, so if this one is unchanged, if one of these goes up, then this one has to go down, and this is basically symmetric for any other thing in the any other type of variable in this equation. Therefore, what you can understand from here is they asked us to write down the relationship, then an equilibrium muscle between S, public saving, and I, which is basically this one. So we found out the relationship should be this one. And well, and they also are asking us to comment this statement and comment this type statement, which is for a given level of I, an increase in public saving necessarily leads to an equal decrease in S. And well, as I've said, you know, this is very straightforward. So if this one is unchanged, then if one of these two increases, the other one has to decrease. And therefore, the answer to this true or false would be true very quickly, because obviously, and you can already get this also by looking at this formula. So you don't necessarily have to remember the fact that private saving plus public saving is equal to investment, but obviously it would make your life kind of harder. And in order to get there through this formula, you can understand that maybe if public saving is going up, what is going on is taxes have to increase or G has to decrease. So what does that mean? That if taxes are increasing for this type of variables, so for the right hand side, therefore they also have to increase here, meaning that the other side of the equation will decrease basically by the same magnitude. On the other hand, you also have that in case it was G that decreased, then you can already understand it, but this is not related to the problem, that if G goes down in this case, then either Y is actually going down or consumption is going up by the same amount, or both of them. But this is purely conjecture. So not related to the question, but in case you have any sort of question that asks you, like with way more variables, what is going on with Y and what is going on with Z, you can figure it out. Obviously, the specific type of effect would be kind of hard to determine. You would need many more variables. However, you can see this just from this formula, which is very straightforward, and it allows you to understand quite a bit. So yeah, for this exercise, it's basically roughly it. In case you guys have any questions, just try to mute yourself and we'll get them through. And if it's okay, I'll move on to the next question since I'm sharing my screen. Is that okay, Margot?
Of course. Go
okay,
ahead.
okay. And so the second one here, and this is going to be like a little bit slower because, you know, it's definitely harder as an exercise. So we'll kind of deal with it with more attention. And this one is related to the Islm model. So obviously, in order to better understand the question, what we are going to do is, trying to understand what is exactly the Islm. And basically, the IS is the locus of all points whereby the goods market is in equilibrium. So the goods market is in equilibrium, while the LM is the same locus of all points whereby the money market is in equilibrium. And here we have a scenario in which country B is facing, basically a recession. And the key point here is that citizens are worried about their mortgage payments. So what's going on here is that mortgage payments are, what you have to understand for the problem is that they're basically linked to the interest rate that the economy is following. Because, if the overall interest rate, the benchmark rate is high, obviously mortgage repayments are going to be very high. And therefore, like, people are going to have less money. So that's why, which therefore decreases consumption. And the all of the effect that we've seen and you have seen with your professors related to the multiplier, and how this very little effect at the beginning kind of starts to ripple throughout the economy. But yeah, this is basically what's the key point in this problem, which I kind of spoiled you. So what we have to remember here is that interest rates are going to matter. And to support those who have mortgages, what is going on is that the majority party is actually proposing an expansionary fiscal policy. On the other hand, the opposition party is supporting a monetary expansion. So we have two questions here. The first one is, which policy do we think is more appropriate? And we have to justify, obviously, by using the Islm model. So starting off, basically, if we look at the Islm model, real quick, we'll just draw our initial equilibrium. So which should be something like this. So we have obviously I and Y. So if we start off like this should be our IS curve. And this should be our LM curve with I equal to I prime. And this would be our initial equilibrium. So what the majority party is actually proposing is a expansionary fiscal policy. And obviously, to get there, an expansionary fiscal policy is basically the opposite of a contractionary. So there's a pretty clear difference here. And the expansionary fiscal policy is basically when the government decides to either increase G or decrease taxes. And why is that? Because, in order to let the economy, expand, as a matter of fact, you start spending more, or you actually tax less your citizens, so they themselves can start to spend more, and therefore they can stimulate the economy and allow it to grow by increasing Y. The reasoning is exactly the same one as we've dealt with before. On the other hand, the contractionary fiscal policy is basically the opposite. So it would be decreasing G or increasing taxes. So yeah, that's just to clarify. And so the first alternative for the majority party would be actually to increase G or decrease taxes. While on the other hand, we have the opposition party that is actually proposing a monetary expansion. So monetary expansion. And obviously, to be 100% fair, it's not usually the government that proposes monetary expansions. However, for the sake of the problem, we'll take it as granted. And what is exactly a monetary expansion? Once again, is the opposite of a contraction. And it's basically, lowering interest rates so that the cost of money is actually decreasing. So what does cost of money mean? Is that people are actually going to pay less to get a loan or mortgage, as a matter of fact, as we were talking about, or like to basically buy money. So that's, the explanation. And as I decreases, you have obviously, to decrease I, you have to increase money supply, but that's not related to the problem. And, there's going to be more consumption, more investment, and, more wine in general. So this should be the alternative. And we have to decide between these two, what's actually the best one, the two alternatives, and why is that? So, well, as I've said before, as I've kind of spoiled you the result before, both of the results would lead in an increase in Y, and we'll actually see this very quickly through the graph here. So what would number one do here? So number one would be the proposal for the majority party, is that an increase in an expansionary fiscal policy is going to affect the AS. Why is that? Because it's the locus of all points whereby the goods market is in equilibrium. So obviously, goods market are the goods market is connected to Y as spending, and also as taxes and consumption. So all things related directly to the to goods. Therefore, the AS would actually be shifting towards the right. So this would be our IS prime. And what we would have as second equilibrium, so E2, which is basically linked to this, is that we would have the same interest rate. So I is equal to Y prime, but Y has increased, which is good for the economy. However, the real problem here is not just the recession, but also the fact that, as we've said before, citizens are worried about their mortgage repayments. So this is going to have a nice effect, but not really the optimal effect. And what is the alternative here? The alternative would be that we follow the opposition party that is actually asking proposing a monetary expansion. So how would that work? It would basically shift the LM down to LM prime, because by decreasing the cost of money, there's going to be more consumption, and obviously in order to do this, they're going to actually decrease the LM, therefore increase money supply. But that's not related to this specific type of model, because we are actually thinking about interest rates as fixed. So this would be our E3 that is actually being proposed by the opposition party. And we can see here that the effect is that Y is actually increased, but also interest rates have decreased, which is what exactly we were looking for. And well, just as a side note, as I've mentioned before, here E2, Y has actually stayed fixed, but I has actually stayed fixed, but Y has increased. So in order to keep Y the same as before, what the central bank has done is basically, accommodate the money supply, and therefore it has increased it. Because if it hadn't, basically, there would have been a decrease in Y. So yeah, that's just a thing not related to the problem, but it might get asked for this type of reasoning in some cases, and for the sake of completeness. So the answer to question number one, to actually question A, would be that the opposition is actually the best, has actually given the best proposal. For what concerns question number two, so this B here. So here they're saying, if the proposal for the majority party prevails, citizens are expecting an immediate rise of taxation and decide to increase their rate of saving. So using the standard Islm model, we should discuss the effects of the policy together with the citizens' reaction on income and interest rates, and we should represent it graphically. So I'll do something real quick, which is basically delete what we've done so far. I'll wait a few seconds in case you guys need to maybe finishing copying it to your notes, but in any case, it will be available afterwards. So yeah, we'll be very, very slow here. Okay. And we'll go over to B. So the proposal from the majority party was the expansionary fiscal policy, meaning increasing G or decreasing taxes. And we will once again have our IS here and the LM. And the proposal from the majority party, as we've said before, would actually be shifting the IS over to this side. However, what is going on here to our E2 is basically that now, the expansionary fiscal policy has been enacted, but citizens are now expecting taxes to be to rise again, so or G2 to go down again. So, and you'll see also in the second part of your course how much expectations play a role in like macroeconomics and also economics in general. And what happens here is even though the government has enacted an expansionary fiscal policy, the effect of this fiscal policy is actually going to be kind of limited and harnessed and actually hampered by expectations. And what kind of expectations do we have here is that citizens are basically expecting the government to go back on their proposal. So what happens here is basically that the IS curve should shift again towards the left. So maybe something like this to IS second. And which is basically, another point, E3, where Y has actually decreased compared to E2. And this is for sure. However, we're not really sure about the position of E3 because it could be here in the first position, or it could be here. Why is that? Because, if their expectations are so magnified that they basically go back to, or it could also be like to the first point, and basically what happens here, as I was saying, is that the citizen reaction can be proportionate or also disproportionate in terms of what their expectations are. And the government, by using an expansionary fiscal policy, has actually might actually end up worsening their initial situation. And this happens also like in a few ways, maybe not right now because we're not really in times of expansionary fiscal policies, but it has happened in the past and it might certainly happen in the future. And this goes to show that citizens' expectations are very, very crucial. And yeah, obviously the graphical representation with a bit more order would be the fact that basically here we have a graph that can be both here or on the left of the first IS. And in general, we have that the overall effect is ambiguous. So you can see here how important it is for the government or the central bank to actually choose the right policy, because all of this would have been actually avoided in case the first the second policy, the opposition policy, were enacted. So yeah, that would be all for me for the second exercise. I'll pass along to Margot just real quick so that she can continue with her exercise. So stop sharing. All right.
Thank you very much. And also, I don't know if you could see on Davide's screen, but there's 3 little Instagram accounts that you should definitely follow.
In case you have any questions for afterwards, or like in case you just want to follow us, I don't care, to be honest. But yeah, in case you want to like make everything clear, we're here for you. So no worries.
Exactly. So follow him, Davide Gambi. My account is Margot_Rimbert, and also follow B.Lab account. I promise it's follow for follow, So if you follow, we follow back. So yes, let's continue with the next exercise. There you go. Wait, so this one. I'm kind of lost. I gotta find it. Okay, no, that was before. Okay, so this one. Okay, this one, no. Wait, where is it?
I mean, you skipped the one about financial markets. We could do that. And then there's the final one. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there you go. Yes, it's this one.
Yeah, you skipped it. Yeah, it's all right.
I was just, okay, so this is about financial markets, true or false. I'm trying not to show the solutions. So there you go. Can you guys see when I highlight?
Yep.
Perfect. So consider a closed economy. The price level is constant. Money demand depends on level of production and interest rate. Question A, the central bank decides to increase the level of interest rate. The central bank can reach this target by varying the reserve ratio. Is it true? What is your first guess, guys? Do you think it's true or not? What is the chat saying? Can the central bank increase interest rates by varying the reserve ratio? No. Yes, that's the answer. The answer was true. Indeed. Okay, so let's see why. So the answer is indeed true. In order to increase interest rates, the central bank has to increase the reserve ratio. What does that mean? That means that banks have to increase the proportion of deposits that they will keep in reserves at the central bank. Okay, this is good, but how come? How come that will increase the interest rate? Well, you gotta remember this formula. The formula of the money supply. So the formula of the money supply, it is the monetary base divided by C plus the reserve ratio multiplied by 1 minus C, where C is the proportion of money held as currency. I don't know if you guys remember this this formula. And so clearly through this formula, you can see that by increasing the reserve ratio, what will happen, that it will decrease the money supply, right? What happens when there is an increase in the money supply? So basically, no, wait. Oh no, it will okay, no, okay. Oh, I'm losing myself. Okay, no. So if we increase the reserve ratio, so this one, it will decrease money supply because it says in the denominator. So what does a decrease in monetary supply mean? It simply means that the central bank wants less money in circulation in the economy. How can they achieve this? How can you have less money in circulation in the economy? They're simply going to sell bonds, because by selling bonds, they're going to take away cash from the economy, right? Because they're going to sell bonds and then take the cash in. So it's going to take away some cash from the economy. That's how they're going to decrease the money supply. But what is the link with the interest rate? It is simply that a question of supply and demand. When the supply of bonds increases because the central bank is going to sell bonds, what is going to happen? The price of bonds will drop, and reversely, the interest rate will increase. So everything comes from this formula, the formula of the money supply. And it's true that it was kind of a tricky one. That's true. But you got to remember this formula, and through this formula, you can clearly see by increasing the ratio, it increases the denominator and thus decreases money supply. And you've got to remember the whole train of thought of how come decreasing money supply increases interest rates. That's simply because there's going to be an open market operation, and they're going to sell bonds in the market. Is it clear? Did you guys get this this whole train of thought? Yes, great, awesome. Oh yeah, little question B. In order to raise the level of interest rate without an action of the central bank, the government can reduce taxation. Is it true? What is the chat saying? Can you repeat the whole sell bonds buy bonds thingy, please? Of course, doing it right now. Okay, so how will the central bank reduce the money supply, the amount of money that is in circulation in the economy? They do it by, through an open market operation, by selling bonds. Why? Because when the central bank is going to sell bonds, in exchange, they're going to receive the cash. So they're going to take away some cash from the economy, okay? And so what happens when they sell bonds? It increases the supply of bonds in the market. And it does decreases the price of bonds because, supply and demand, when there's more supply, it decreases the price of bonds. And of course, interest rates move in opposite direction than prices. So if prices of bonds decrease, the interest rate will increase. And that was what the central bank wanted. Is it clear? Yes, awesome. Okay. So question B, in order to raise level of interest rate without an action of the central bank, the government can reduce taxation. Is it true? I think that you guys in the chat said that it was true, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I saw some yeses. In point B, the money supply is exogenous. I mean, it doesn't really change the question, right? Because it's either the central bank changes in, like, it's the money supply that is exogenous, or it is the interest rates, but the central bank can control one via the other, right? So it was not specified in the question, but it actually does not really make a difference. But I mean, yeah, here in the graph, you can see that money supply was exogenous indeed. So in order to raise the level of interest rates without an action of the central bank, the government can reduce taxation. It is indeed true. How come? Because a taxation reduction increases disposable income, and this is gonna, and by increasing the money demand for transaction, increase the level of interest rates. Oh yes. So when you reduce taxation, I cannot speak English anymore at that time of the day. It increases disposable income. So population has less taxes to pay, so they're wealthier, right? And so they are healthy. They are wealthier. They wanna invest more. It's gonna increase the demand for transactions, and thus increases the level of interest rates. So this one is the one you just did, right, Davide? Yeah, it is. ISNM.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I did that one. I wasn't really. Yeah, this one is the one I'm supposed to do, and then there's yours. Whichever you want to do is fine.
Go ahead. You can go with the labor market.
Okay, I'll start right now. Okay, I'll start sharing my screen. Okay, I think you guys can see it right now. Yes. All right. So This one is about the labor market, and I think it's one of the hardest ones that we'll deal with today. Even though it's fairly simple in general, it's just that it is a bit cumbersome for what concerns the computations and also the intuitions, because I've always find that the labor market is a bit more, at least at first, is a bit more unintuitive to grasp. So yeah, we have our two usual price setting and wage setting equations. So in country A, it's the wage is equal to the price times function of the unemployment in Z. And the price is actually equal to 1 plus the markup times W. And obviously, you know, to solve the problem at our best, what is very good to do is, and what is very good to check is actually your understanding of the basic formula. So basically, you know, for concerns prices is just going to be that firms are actually going to be charging the prices basically equal, considering that there's just, you know, we're assuming there's just one good. Firms are going to charge the wages times 1 plus the markup. So basically, if they're actually going to be allowed to charge more, then their markup is going to increase. But obviously, they're not going to charge, you know, something disproportionate to the wages of people, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to actually buy anything, and therefore the firms themselves wouldn't be able to sell anything. For what concerns the wages itself, instead, obviously, people are going to get paid a function of unemployment instead, meaning that, you know, the pay that people are actually going to be getting is directly correlated to a casual variable, which we're going to deal with it later on. So we'll just keep it there for now. And also the unemployment. And you can think of this as a basic demand and supply market, which you studied in micro, but it's also fairly intuitive. So if you think of it, of wages determined by a demand and supply market, you can understand that, let's suppose there's just one job and like 2,000 people trying to get it. Obviously, in that case, wages for that job are going to be very, very, well, obviously, reasoning by demand and supply, if there's just one job, there's going to be very low wages. And why is that? Because obviously, if you, well, ceteris paribus, if, meaning everything else the same, if there is a lot of people running for just one job, if I ask for €100 a month for that job, there's always going to be, or very likely there's going to be somebody just asking for like €50 a month. And same thing, another person asking for €30 a month. Therefore, as the unemployment decreases, which is basically, you know, this many people, the wages is actually going to go down. And this function, as we were dealing with before, is actually decreasing in Y and increasing in Z. But that's just a quick rundown of the formulas, just to get you guys into the mood. So instead here, the first request is basically, after having graphically represented the equilibrium, we have to show the effects of an increase in minimum wages on the equilibrium values of U and W over P, which once again, W over P, we didn't mention it, but it's very clear, it's the real wage of people, because you're actually dividing the wage in nominal term by the price, meaning like how many goods people are actually allowed to buy with their wages, which is once again in real terms. And we have to provide the economic intuition for your answer. And this is actually crucial, obviously, because, you know, if you're not that good at math, even though the calculus here is very simple, you can actually kind of use the economic intuition as a check for your calculus, or vice versa. If you're not that good at economics, you can understand it from math and reason it out from there. So yeah, for what concerns the graphical representation, we'll just draw very quickly our price setting and wage setting equation. So here we have our real wage. And here we have the x-axis, the unemployment, meaning that our two equations are going to be, our two lines, sorry, are going to be here, the price setting is actually going to be equal to 1 plus, well, if we want to, we can write this one a little bit better. So W over P equal 1 plus M, but we'll do that a little bit better in just a few seconds. So this one is going to be 1 over 1 plus M. And why is it horizontal? Once again, because, you know, the price that the firms are actually going to be charging is actually independent on unemployment. They don't care about how many people have a job or not, because, you know, they're just going to charge the price that is related to wages. So as unemployment increases, the price that they're going to be charging is actually going to stay at 1 over 1 plus M. And you can see it from the fact that it's horizontal. What is actually changing from unemployment, as we said before, is the wage setting, which is actually this equation over here. So obviously, in order to write it, we have to find out y, if you allow me, which is basically going to be W over P. So in case they give you a very hard formula, you just have to find your W over P, and whatever it gives you there is just going to be your function. Even though, as you can see in the second question, the formula that they're going to give you is very simple. And if anything, I don't think like for your specific partials, you know, since we're going to be online and stuff, they're not going to give you any formulas whatsoever. This at least this was the case for us last year, which I think is a very good advantage, because as long as you actually are able to grasp the basic economics of the overall like thing and what is going on, you can just figure it out by yourself and have a very good grade, which is cool. And yeah, so we'll just draw real quick our wage setting here. And well, once again, why is it decreasing? Because of what we said before. So as the unemployment increases, so as we move right towards our graph, the wages are actually going to go down. And that's just for the basic setting. So we have our first equilibrium, E1, where, you know, we're going to have 1 over 1 plus M. And just as a quick side note, once again, here in the equation for the price setting, there's also A, which in 99% of the cases, we're going to be assuming that it's going to be 1. So you don't really have to think about it. But, you know, it's useful to understand that is basically the marginal productivity of labor, meaning that, you know, if a worker is working, how many units is he going to produce? A units. So once again, you calibrate the wage that you give to this worker based on, you know, how much he gains, the markup, as well as obviously how many units it produces. Because, you know, if he's very productive and he produces 100 units, you're not going to pay him as much as a worker that is actually producing just 1 unit. But yeah, that's not related to the problem. I don't think it's going to be related to any of the problems you're going to deal with. So for exam purposes, it's kind of useless, sorry. But yeah, this is basically the status quo that we have here. And what they're asking us is to determine the effects of an increase in minimum wages. So, and here is what I was telling you before about. The minimum wages are actually determined, are actually incorporating in our model in the catch-all variable. And you know, when you think about this catch-all variable, you have to think of it 2 ways. In order to remember by like what is actually catching you, because you know, it's saying it's a catch-all variable is very dispersive, and you know, making an exhaustive list, however, is very tiring and it's kind of useless. So yeah, what is actually the thing that determines the catch-all variable? It's basically all the variables that when they increase, they're actually going to increase wages. Meaning, in this case, if you increase minimum wages, what is going on to our catch-all variable is actually going to increase, because, you know, the normal economic intuition would be you're actually increasing minimum wages. So people that were paid below the minimum wage that was before, people that are getting that were paid below the minimum wages that is now are going to actually get paid more. or something else is going to happen to them. But we're going to reason through that very quickly. But just as a quick example, and if you want like a real case scenario for this, you can think of what happened with Amazon 2 years ago, where they had a minimum wage at $13 an hour. And then what happened is they increased it to $15 an hour. This will be a very clear case of an increase in, an increase in Z. However, what is actually happening to workers when Z increases? So what is going to happen in our model? That's also very interesting to grasp. So what we have here is that an increase in Z means that our wage setting, I'll do it in red, our wage setting equation is going to move upwards. And why is this? Because for the same level of unemployment, so for our same level of X here, our variable on the X-axis, you're going to have not E1 level of wages, but actually a higher level of wages, you know. And you can think of it as the wage setting is actually shifting upwards. So if you have a very good imagination, you can think of the fact that, you know, wages are actually increasing because the wage setting is going upwards. Therefore, you know, unemployment, if it is fixed, people are going to ask for more wages, which is just what we have dealt with so far. So yeah, our new equilibrium wouldn't be this one because, you know, it's not in the price setting. But in reality, so it would not be E2, but in reality, it would be this one, E3. And why is this? Because as we've said before, if you increase the minimum wage, we're going to have people demanding higher wages. So demand for high wages increases. However, firms have not changed their stance whatsoever. They're not going to be willing to grant higher wages, meaning that the price setting equation is going to stay fixed, and the overall equilibrium is not going to change in terms of W over P. What is actually going to change is our unemployment level. So U2, this one was U1, that is actually going to increase. So therefore, U is actually going to increase. This is a key effect here. And the economic intuition, without all the related side note, is basically that since now the minimum wage is actually increased, how firms have not actually changed their stance concerning wages and are actually going to fire people because they don't have the willingness to actually provide them with a higher wages. And once again, you can think of the Amazon example I've given you before. When increases their minimum wage from $13 to $15, the firm has basically two options. Either they increase your wage. So basically, let's say there is a law that is saying like all the minimum wage has to be increased, which is exactly what is going on in the problem. The firm has basically the choice of either increasing the wages or basically firing you. In firing a lot of people. And what happens when people are fired, the unemployment rate increases. And once again, our model is able to explain all of the intuition. So this was for the first point. The second one is going to be way quicker because it's basically just going to be basic calculus. And they say, suppose F is equal to this formula with this type of variables, we have to compute the initial level of U. So it would be our U1. And well, just very quickly here, we just put in a very basic system of linear equation, our two equations, meaning the price setting and the wage setting. This one over here. And we just substitute the values that they've given us. So we'll just do it quicker. So 0.5 times Z minus 5U, and we're going to equal to W over P And W over P here is actually going to be, and we just substitute 1 here, meaning it's 1/2. So if we move over this side, and I'll just copy this one real quick. Okay. What we can understand here, they said Z was equal to, sorry, I think it was 2. Yes. And M was equal to 1. But yeah, we've already found it. So we have here that 0.5 times U minus 5 times U is equal to W over P. And here instead, W over P is equal to 1/2. So this just becomes one equation. So sorry, it would be 1 minus 5U is equal to 1/2, meaning that U is actually going to be equal to 0.1. And so these are the two equations. U is going to be equal to 1/2. And this is basically the result that we were looking for. So U is equal to 0.1, W over P is equal to 1/2. And now, so this was point B very quickly. And now the point C is basically, you know, asking us what is changing, following a change in concentration. So changing concentration will mean an increase in the markup because, you know, when a market is more concentrated, it means that there are less players. So think of it as, you know, a market in which you have 3 competitors. Suppose now there is only 2. Those 2 competitors are actually going to be able to charge higher prices, which is exactly what is going on here by increasing the markup. And, you know, the government here understand that obviously the situation is not the greatest, and it wants to actually keep the unemployment level fixed. So, meaning that the new M, so M prime, is actually going to be equal to 1.5, which is different from the one before, which was only 1. And we have to compute the value of Z such that here, I'll use the thing here. The value of Z that will allow basically the unemployment level to stay fixed. So we want U such that, Z, my bad, such that U stays at 0.1. And what we can, how we can do it is basically just once again solving this very easy system of linear equations, which is going to be 1.5, meaning 1 over 2.5, meaning if I am not wrong, 0.4 could it be? Yeah. And here instead we have 0.5 times Z, which here we have to compute, minus 5 times our U, which is going to be 0.1. So proceeding here over to this side, we have that W over P is going to be equal to 0.5 times Z minus 0.5. And here is actually W over P equal to 0.4. So equalizing 2 equations equals to 0.4. It's going to be equal to 0.9 divided by 0.5, which is actually going to be equal if, wait, let me find a calculator real quick. It should be 1.8. Yeah, okay, yeah, it should be 1.8. Somebody can check the computation, but I think it should be 1.8. Doing it in my mind. But yeah, well, this is just a value. And what I'm going to focus on is basically, you know, the kind of economic intuition and answer the final question, which is how could the government intervene to vary Z? So what we have found here is that from, well, Z before was 2. And, you know, now is basically going to be 1.8. So what has happened here is basically that the government has actually decreased that because of the fact that, you know, firms are now actually increasing their markup. Therefore, they're actually increasing the prices that they're gonna try to charge customers, meaning that the price setting is actually going to go down here. So obviously there's quite a few colors in the graph, but yeah, this should be price setting prime, meaning that in theory, our unemployment should go to the right, meaning that they're going to increase. In order to keep it, well, where it was before, we actually are going to have to basically decrease the wage setting, meaning that in order to do this, we're going to actually have to, increase the wage setting. And in order to do this, we're actually going to have to increase our Z. And so basically, how does the government do this? Well, it basically does the opposite thing as we've done before, as we've seen before. That is, it basically starts decreasing the unemployment insurance, minimum wages. Is basically trying to remove the welfare things that are actually protecting workers from getting fired, and are actually going to be increasing wages. So that should be roughly the rundown of this problem. Obviously, the solutions are going to get uploaded as well in a more like coherent and like, well, ordinate manner, because here is not that easy to you know, find your way through. But yeah, that should be roughly it for me. I'll pass the word to Margot, and yeah, in case you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's share the screen again. There you go. So before moving to the last exercise, I just wanted to go back a little bit to the last question of the last exercise that we just did, because it's true that I kind of went quickly on it. And so there was a question that was, but how come? Because when you reduce taxation, it moves the IS, but the IS does not change the interest rate. Okay, so basically the thing is, you gotta have a look at this this graph here. By reducing taxation, you are shifting the MD, okay? And by shifting the MD, you're gonna have a new equilibrium in the market, in the money market. And new equilibrium in the money market means new IS. So indeed, the means new LM, sorry. So indeed, the IS is gonna shift, but so is the IS. The IS is going to shift because of the taxes, but so is the LM because of this this change in the money market. Okay, so basically a tax, yes, so a tax reduction. You're going to have the IS that will shift down, but due to this new equilibrium in the money market and an increase in the interest rates, the LM is going to shift up. I hope this makes it a bit clearer. Yes, I agree as well. So interest rate remains the same in the ISLM because central bank compensate with the change in the MS. No, interest rate are going to increase. Interest rate are going to increase. They're not going to stay the same. And there was also a question in question B, is the money supply staying the same? Yes, it is. Okay. So basically, what do you have? You have the money market. What is going to happen in the money market? Money supply does not change, but MD is going to move upwards. So what is going to happen? It's going to bring the interest rate up, and thus LM is going to shift up. And there's also, due to the tax reduction, the IS that is going to shift downwards, but this does not change anything in the for the interest rate, right? So interest rate is still going to increase because there's this shift upwards of the LM due to this new equilibrium in the money market. Is it clearer? I hope it is. Okay, awesome. So now let's move to last but certainly not least exercise. the ISLMPC. I guess you guys have like dreams and nightmares about it, right? You guys should dream about like ISLMPC graphs at night. So let's go. Consider a country in medium run equilibrium. Yes. Nightmares, only nightmares. No, come on. ISLMPC is pretty fun. It is. You'll see this exercise is fun. So consider a country in medium run equilibrium position where inflation is constant at pi bar equals 0, and thus the expected inflation is also equal to 0. And this economy is described by a standard ISLMPC, but the central bank chooses R. Okie dokie. So what are they asking us? Represent the medium run equilibrium, assuming that R1 is superior to 0. Now, suppose that following a law, minimum wages increase. Denote new short run equilibrium by one prime. How have Y, C, I changed and Y? Hint, which is the most important here, assume IS isn't changed. Okay, this is very important here. So to answer this first question, here you have this beautiful graph. Wow. So what is happening? First of all, they ask you to represent this initial medium run equilibrium, which is here at point 1. Okay, so you just have your IS1, LM1, and you have the Y that is at its natural level, and here you have your beautiful Phillips curve that crosses Y at 0. Amazing. And then you suppose that following a law, minimum wage increases. So what does that mean when minimum wage increase? An increase in minimum wage is going to lead to an increase in Z. So that's what Davide was telling you guys in the previous exercises. What does an increase in Z imply? A shift up of the wage setting curve, okay? And what happens when the wage setting curve shifts up? There is an increase in the natural rate of unemployment, okay? But now, this is the most important step. You have to think that an increase in natural rate of unemployment leads to a decrease in natural level of output, okay? Because obviously, if there's less people working, the GDP of the country is gonna go down. So its natural level is gonna be down, and that leads, thus, if there is a decrease in the natural level of output, to a shift up of the PC. And how come? Why is the Phillips curve shifting up? Because you have to remember the formula for the Phillips curve, okay? It is, so the difference between inflation and inflation expected, that is equal to minus alpha multiplied by unemployment minus natural unemployment, okay? So here, if you have an increase in natural rate of unemployment, this is gonna lead to minus UN that is gonna go down, and because there's also a minus in front of the alpha, the whole equation is gonna increase, right? Because you have those two minuses to take into account, okay? So you have to be careful. An increase in UN is gonna lead to a decrease in this whole thing, but an increase in this whole thing, okay? You have two minuses to take into consideration. So you have your beautiful PC curve that shifts upwards. Okay, so you represent all this in your little graph. You have, so for now, don't take into consideration an M2, okay? That's for the next question. So here, what do you have? You have your initial one with the IS and LM, and now your one prime, where is it gonna be? You just shift PC up, okay? But remember, they told you IS does not move, okay? It was in the instructions. They said that IS is not moving. So that's basically the only thing that is happening, right? So what is gonna happen? Y and C did not change here. You still have your Y that is equal to the previous natural rate of natural output, but that is not the new one, okay? It's still equal to the previous natural output. Y has not changed. C has not changed either. IS do not move. and I is also unchanged. So everything they were asking you for is unchanged. But here, what you got to see is that by shifting this PC curve up, and by having nothing done by neither the government that is going to shift the IS nor the central bank shifting the LM, by having the LM and the IS that are still unchanged, this is going to lead to an inflation, okay? Why? Because Y is not at its natural level anymore, okay? So now instead of having the PC that crosses Y at 0, it's a bit higher up, okay? And so now there is this inflation right here. So this is what you got to observe in this question. Is this question clear, guys? Yes, awesome. Now, next question. Suppose that after, there you go. Suppose that economy has reached 1 prime. The central bank wants to bring Y back to its natural level. So that's what we were saying, by implementing an open market operation, an OMO. Should the central bank sell or purchase bonds? Showing the graph the new rates are, what should the central bank do to bring back general price level to their initial value? Because you guys got to be careful here. We have the change in inflation, okay? So if inflation is going up, if inflation is going down, but those are two things, okay? What way is the inflation going, and prices in general, what is their level, okay? So those are two things two goals that the CB has in mind, okay? So first of all, what was the very first part of the question? Wants to bring Y back to its natural. Okay, so what should they do? What OMO should they do? So here you want the PC to cross Y back at 0, okay? So we need R and thus LM to be shifted upwards, okay? And having this new LM2, because now by shifting LM1 to LM2, the new level of Y, of output, is finally going to be at its natural level and thus going to cross at 0. So this is what they want to do. And what does that imply? That implies an open market sell. Why so? We just explained why, because by selling bonds, you increase the supply of bonds, and so by the simple supply and demand, it decreases the prices of bonds and increases its yield, its interest rate. So that's what the central bank is going to do. And then so the price levels, right before we were having an inflation, right? And this, we should not forget about it, because okay, now there's no inflation anymore because it's back to 0. Okay, the world is beautiful, but there has been an inflation before. So in the meantime, prices have been going up. And so the CB, they tell you that it wants to bring back the prices to what they used to be. So what are they going to do here? I just canceled this part of the question, but they were telling you, like, you don't need to do more graphs and stuff, just explaining words. You don't need to draw new curves. So just in words, how can the CB do that? Bring back the price levels simply by increasing even more R. Why? Because by increasing even more R, then the PC is actually going to cross not at 0, but a bit below, so that now there's going to be a deflation, and there's going to be this inflation that is going to counterbalance. There's going to be this deflation that is going to counterbalance the inflation that we've had before. Okay, so they're just going to increase interest rates a bit more. So there's going to be a little time period during which it's going to be a little deflation that is going to counterbalance the inflation that we've had before. And then once it's counterbalanced, they're going to bring back R to R2 and to its the PC is finally going to cross Y at 0 and be at its and output will be at its natural level, and there's not going to be any inflation anymore. Oh, what's an OMO? Yes, an open market operation. So it's either selling bonds or buying bonds. Exactly. I just wrote it as OMO because it was yesterday night. I was tired and I couldn't type, so it's just like OMO. But yeah, open market operation is this. It's when the central bank has the choice between buying bonds and or selling bonds in order to manipulate the money that is outside in circulation and thus change the interest rates. Could you please explain point B again? Yes, of course. So point B, so first of all, the central bank wants Y to be brought back to its natural level. How are they going to do this? Because, okay, initially we're at one prime here, okay? That's where we are for now. And the CB wants to be at 2, right? Because at 2, what happens is that the PC crosses Y at 0, output is at its natural level, and inflation is equal to 0, okay? So that's what the CB wants. How can they do this? How can you go from Y prime to 2 here? It's by shifting LM up, okay? So here by shifting LM up, finally the equilibrium, the Y prime is going to be at its natural level and cross at 0. How can you bring this this LM up? By doing an open market operation and selling bonds, because when you sell bonds, you increase the supply of bonds in the market, and thus prices of bonds decrease and interest rates increase. And then there's a second part to the question asking you, how can they do to bring back price levels to what they used to be? Because before this, when we were at 1 prime, there was inflation, okay? Maybe now now that we're in 2, there's no more inflation, okay? Because inflation minus inflation at T minus 1 is equal to 0. Now PC is crossing at Y at 0. But before there used to be an inflation, we were at 1 prime. And so it means that during this period of time where there was inflation, prices have been going up. So they want to bring those prices down again so that the level of prices is the same as they used to be. And how can they do so? Just for temporarily increasing interest rates even more, so that now PC is not going to cross at 0, but below 0. And so for a period of time, it's going to cross like, around here. And now for a period of time, there's going to be a deflation, bringing prices levels down, and thus counterbalancing the inflation that there was before. Okay. And then, of course, they're not going to keep this deflation going on forever. Once prices levels are finally back to what they used to be, they're going to bring R down again to R2, to the point where inflation is equal to 0. Great, amazing. Any other questions, guys? Everything is good. Everything is clear. Awesome. Well, if you have any other questions, you know that you can contact us on WhatsApp, on Instagram. Oh, but there's people entering right now, but we're done. I'm gonna stop. How do you stop sharing? Oh, there you go. Stop sharing. Yeah. Amazing.
All right.
So yes, no more questions, guys.
Yes.
Okay. No worries. I mean, thank you guys as well for attending. It must have been fun to listen to us talk for basically 1.5 hours. I wouldn't recommend it to my worst enemy, but yeah, thank you guys once again. And as Margot said, if you have any questions and if you can't find us on like any pages, just write to B-Lab and they'll get in contact to us. But in any case, solutions are going to be posted. So yeah, good luck for your exams, and in particular for your macro exam, because now it's going to depend on us as well. And you guys have a nice evening, and thank you once again for your attendance. Yeah, we're posting the recording on the YouTube channel, I think. We're going to give you the links as soon as they're ready on Instagram, or either that or peer-to-peer, or the Facebook group. There's many channels. Yeah, but it should be on YouTube. Yeah.
Yes, because I bet it was kind of hard to listen to us for 1.5 hours, so maybe there's some parts that you've lost. But of course, to find them. But I wish best of luck. Best of luck for all your partials, not only macro, but all of them, but especially macro. Macro was honestly, macro was fun. I loved it. I wish you guys good luck.
We didn't have macro partial last
amazing.
year.
We believe in you.
But yeah.
Don't hesitate to contact us if you have any question. And
Okay.
do you have some tips for the macro exam, maybe?
Me?
Yeah.
Do I have any
macro exam?
Okay. So I wouldn't have any tips for the partial since, you know, thanks COVID, we didn't have to do one last year. However, that's the first thing. I would say, even if you mess up the partial, like macro is basically all interconnected. And actually, like, even the last topic of macro is going to be basically building off, like, even like the first one, except for GDP. GDP is basically useless. You know, it's just by itself, it's not useful. But yeah, all of the other models that you're going to study are basically going to be like new additions to the Islm. So as long as you have the basics here clear, even though you might mess up the partial, don't worry, the general is still feasible. We've all done it last year and it was definitely feasible. Plus, given it that it's still online, you don't really have to worry about much about calculations and stuff like that, as I was saying before. Second thing is really try to understand what you're studying. I mean, to be fair, like, even though macro might go bad, like, you know, let's speak bluntly, that there's a chance that macro goes bad for somebody. However, you're gonna have the same things in a lot of subjects going on. So especially if you're in BM/BF, I don't know if there's any clam people here, might be, might not, but yeah, especially if you're in some courses, macro is going to be very like a fundamental thing in your 3 years. So please make sure you study it well. Other than that, for the exam, just, you know, study. That's it. There's no really any magic formula. But since like you're already here, so you're already like on a good point for that. Other than that, good luck.
Exactly. Like, honestly, we've done the general and we've survived. So you guys try your best on the partial and just don't put too much pressure on yourself, you know, because of course you're all going through hard times. So don't be too harsh on yourself. Everything is gonna go fine. And what else? I've also talked to your representatives.
Oh, can you guys see her? I don't think you can. She talked to your representative. That's all we know.
I don't know if they changed the format, but for us, if I remember well.
No, I don't think they had.
Yeah, but if they didn't, for us it was, I think it was 6 questions, right? So 6 questions, 6 mini exercises. For the graphs, including, I think out of those 6 there was like 1 or 2 true or false. Maybe 2 true or false, I don't know.
Yeah.
And basically for the graphs, what happens is that you are given different possibilities, different graphs, and you have to choose which one is the right graph and explain why. And so you might be like, okay, then this is like easier and stuff because you don't have to draw it, you just choose it. Well, not necessarily, because basically that's also what I thought. But then when I was doing the exam, I would see all those graphs and I was like, oh, but damn, like maybe if they put this graph, it's because it goes like that and there's something that I forgot and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly.
Start to overthink, you know, but don't. Honestly, just follow your first instinct. And it's gonna go fine, I'm sure.
Yeah. Once again, good luck, guys. There's not really much we can tell.
Good luck.
But thank you for attending once again.
It's been more than an hour and a half now, so I think we'll just leave you guys. Have a little squeeze tonight. No, I'm kidding. Be responsible.
Bye.
Bye-bye.